Next is audience of the public, or a little more informal. Is there anyone who wants to speak before we move on? Martin?
I just would like to take this time and thank everybody that helped out in any way, facilities, transportation, were both there. Karen and Stephen was there, some of the board members, I know Noah, Alvin, Karen, I know you were all there at Al's Memorial. I just wanted to let you guys know what it meant the world to me. He really loved the van driving that he did. He did make a difference while he was there. There was one child in particular I can't go into, but anyhow, that really meant the world to him, and he really worked his job, in my opinion, to do what needed to be done. I so appreciate everybody that was there to support us, and there was a lot of work put into it, very much recognized. Facilities did a wonderful job of making sure everything was there that we needed, and I just wanted to say thank you very much in that front. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? Okay. There are no action items, so we're going to move into other items. Or just a little bit of shuffling. We're going to start with item E, FY26 budget.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just because they're going to be speaking here a little bit later on, but we got Mike Davey and Kerry Morris here from Energy Efficiency Investments. They're our energy savings company that we've aligned with, and talk a little bit about upcoming projects. And so I asked for the budget piece to be moved up. Karen and I have took a look at my two budgets, both facilities and transportation. I know that the board, the guidance that you put out to us was to try to come as close as flat as possible. I did not meet that goal with transportation. And what I would propose as a means to get us there is to take $100,000 from that we were going to put into debt services and move that over onto transportation to cover those costs that we were going to have that we had as new purchases. That would be the new van driver, the potential transportation software, and then a van or possibly two vans, depending on.
You're looking at reducing your debt service increase to $650.
That's correct. And I have spoken with Carrie about that, and that still gives us some latitude. And that still gives me a fair amount of money in my district-wide with my services and repairs line. I think that we can manage that pretty successfully with that, and certainly I appreciate the taxpayers. Hopefully, they would like to see us coming in as flat as possible. That's our effort to do that.
Add that to our discussion on Monday.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to come in flat on this budget when every one of us has seen an increase of cost. You know, and the district is not gonna, can't absorb all these costs just because everybody else thinks, my budget went up, well, but the money didn't go up. Well, the money's gonna have to come from somewhere, or we'll have to close up school. We can't just pray that everything goes perfect, get it out of the air. That's my comment.
And you said he was one of those very comfortable with the 650.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure we're not reducing your secret too much.
No, I think that we're comfortable with that.
And one of the things I haven't finished looking at, but we have a few notes out from some Siemens projects, and a few of those are coming to an end.
So I think next year, one of those will add it's either 50 or 75,000 back, which will help make up this difference. So if we do need to put more toward a note the following year, we could do that. And then I think another one is 2 years after that.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions on the adjustments to the budget? Take it away.
So we've got in the big scheme of energy savings projects that we are doing, we have one set up for this coming April. And then we are looking down the road at the summer and then obviously beyond the summer of 2025. Carrie has put together a kind of a spreadsheet for us, and if you're willing to talk to it, Carrie.
Yeah. In a little bit on that.
Well, we're gonna kind of give a brief background again on where we are, how we got here, just as a refresher. We are looking, this started really with the septic system and looking at that and then looking at the campus for the high school and our priority list of what our highest needs are for all these needs that were kind of laid out what we need to get done, and it came to the high school boiler room and then the biomass, the septic system. So with the current efficiency main rebates, it made sense to evaluate a biomass system for the campus, since both the high school and the middle school are still on old oil boilers. And so with the rebate through a large biomass program with efficiency main and ongoing thermal racks that the district would get, it made a central biomass plant really appealing to look at. So that's what's in here as an option, is the biomass boiler for the high school and the middle school. That would be located on the side of Miller Road. Is it the Miller Road of where there's going to be a central plant there, and that has access for that street. So the access is going to be very easy to get to for deliveries, and then we'll underground pipe it over to both schools. And you're going to have backup propane with that system to carry it in the shoulder seasons. And so that building, the building and the boilers are all in that biomass project. And you'll see there's a grant for around $300,000 for efficiency main for that. The energy savings is roughly $55,000. And then the yearly thermal rack that you'll be getting through an ongoing monitoring service that will have a meter set up on that plant is going to be around $14,000 or $15,000 a year. And that's based on the production. And that's going to be a check to the district every year that you'll get for the operation of that boiler for thermal racks. So that going into the cash flow did make it a very appealing option to, one, look at a renewable source. Two, that building that we'll be creating with the biomass will have additional space that we could free up for facilities. So we can have a facilities office, we'll have additional storage, which is not, it's not a massive step in having space, but it is a good step in moving facilities into one central location on the campus, where when it comes to transportation and plowing, everything can kind of be at one home base there. And then the septic system, we have finished the design. It's currently with the state under review. It's probably going to take them another few weeks, but after their first week glance and review, everything looks fine. With that design, we also were able to lower some of the infill that we needed to bring in for that. And then we're also made it so it can be, once it's in the ground, you can ride over it. So there's nothing that's going to impede having it in that location. You can still drive over it or utilize that space. And that's included. And then we also capitalized on the fact that we were doing a small section of the union controls this April, where we're moving. Siemens is working with us to remove the pneumatics left in a few spaces to go to BBC, which once we start that, the whole district does need to upgrade on the control system. So let's finish the controls at Union School so that we have that system done. So we'll be finishing that control system in the summer project at Union, which will garner some energy savings because we'll be able to control more of that building. And then plan B would be for phase 2 to then finish the ventilation at that building, because it's old and it's not working in the classrooms. You have a new air handler in one section, but then one of the classrooms, there's 19 ceiling unit ventilators that are manually operated. and they have to be turned on in the winter, but they pull 100% fresh air from the outside. So they're loud and noisy, and a lot of times they're turned off. The teachers haven't operated them, so you have no ventilation in those classrooms. So that's planned for phase 2, and then you're kind of wrapping up that union building now for HVAC work. And a huge portion of that will be accomplished under the control, since that is a heavy lift, price-wise. So you'll see in the total there is the project, and then beneath that in red, I have the small breakouts for the April vacation project, which is a mix of acoustic improvements at Miller, ceiling tile in Prescott. There's a noise issue with the ducting for one of the ERVs that really disrupts the classroom. We've looked at it, it's been looked at a few times of what would fix it. We think adding a drop ceiling can really buffer that noise. So we're gonna add a drop ceiling to cover that ductwork there. We're gonna do exterior lighting at Prescott, Friendship, Miller School, Warren School. And then adding some classroom insulation, exterior insulation at the middle school. There's a back section that has no insulation. It's causing a lot of time stamping at Miller, so we're fixing that. And then also there's a few classroom spaces with no insulation above that ceiling. So we'll be adding some insulation there. And those are smaller projects that will be able to be accomplished in a few days. So we looked at what we could chip off of that list of necessary improvements that we could do in a short amount of time that were within a smaller budget. And those were the ones that we're tackling for this April vacation. The saving on the cash flow sheet, that is for the larger project. I believe it's $6 million for the biomass, the septic, and the union controls. With the savings associated with the biomass plus the thermal racks, I believe it came to around $390 that we would need additionally from the budget that will come from those funds towards this project. And that leaves enough room for the next phase, which is tackling the ventilation and the oil boilers that are left within the district. The goal is to really look at going from one building to one building. So the ventilation at most schools needs to get replaced. And then also we want to eventually try and get the district from oil onto all of propane. And that would be part of that phase 2 with the remaining funds. And I think this first project is a good, what we can also do is, talk, maybe this is a great first step in fixing the buildings after listing out, everyone's aware of what we need to get done. We're looking at it with a renewable approach. Where can we capitalize on incentives? Where can we capitalize on efficiency gain by creating that central plant? We're getting the septic system done, which was a necessary and deadline project, and planning for the next phase. So it's certainly a proactive approach that's being taken of how do we accomplish this and how do we do it in the best way of not just finding a project here or there. It's looking at it from let's get the immediate needs done, and then we'll go building by building with priorities and ventilation within the budget that we currently have, and looking for any incentives where we can.
If I may, if you remember back, well, now 2 years ago and up through till now, I've had kind of a constantly updated priority list within the district, and we in the top 4 of that, we took care of the roof at Union Elementary School. We took care of the domestic water, hot water heater at Union Elementary School. The next one, the third item on the list was the sewer, was the septic system at the high school. And right in that same area was also the boiler at the high school. And also the water treatment system that we have at the high school. And we're going to be, by the summer, we will have accomplished all of that and more. And I think that that sets us up pretty good to then start working through the district. Certainly Miller's controls and valves is something that we're key on. But I think that this really starts getting us knocking down those items on the list that we were not to overdo it, but kind of keep you awake at night. So I look forward to getting some of these done. I think the biomass boiler we did meet. I had another rep from EEI came down and we met with Walterboro Codes Enforcement Officer and, talked to the roads commissioner as far as where we were looking to put it, which is going to be basically right next to my facilities building, right off from the Miller Road. And, they are all completely happy with everything that we showed them. And so I think that I don't foresee any issues from either at this point.
And the original plan too, when we were looking a year ago at the high school, the oil boiler they were referring, we were gonna have to expand the space that was currently within the high school. So that project, I have that as an option, that's around 1.5. So and that doesn't come with a significant rebate that the biomass did, which is where the thought came up, let's just evaluate the two, because at some point we would also have to replace that oil boiler at the middle school. So when you combine those two projects together without the rebate, you're kind of looking at apples to apples pricing, but you're getting a much more efficient system. On the biomass, you have one centralized plan for maintenance, you get the rebates, you have the thermal racks that are going yearly, and you're going with a renewable approach. So it made sense to evaluate both, and I think that having the ability to do a biomass at the campus will be a great benefit to the district as a whole, not just this campus. We can use it as a learning opportunity, which we do at multiple other schools. You can do tours, you can set it up to be a learning campus. You have the tree farm right next to it, you have the greenhouse, so it really can start becoming more of that full learning campus by utilizing that biomass building.
Eric?
No, you just brought that up. What about the heating of the horticulture buildings and all that stuff? Would that be part of this, or is that not?
The greenhouse.
That's the greenhouse. Those have oil, two small oil furnaces in them as it stands now. My intent was not to do anything more. Those are fairly new. So I was not intending to do anything with that until I think there's still a lot of questions about what the end result is going to be with that. That I don't want to put a lot of money into it.
Gotcha. What is the use we have now with the boiler room in the middle school? You got to have that space freed up now.
Well, for one, if anybody's been in there, and if not, if you'd like to go down there, there's a lot of stuff jammed into a very small space. And because we have the sprinkler system here, you've got a lot of tanks, lift pump tanks, you've got all kinds of stuff, and trying to get into service anything is incredibly difficult. When we had the problems here with the water, the control system, and some of the pumps and stuff, it was a real hassle getting in to be able to do service on any of that. So opening up a little bit of room to maneuver is going to be pretty helpful.
Will that leave just Prescott and Friendship and Warren on?
Well, yes. And we've gone through multiple designs with the architects on that building for the biomass to capitalize on the space, reduce cost, but also keep enough space for facilities and maintenance to have in there. So we've now kind of settled on a solid design that will accomplish everything we want within a very cost-effective way. And we have designs of that building that we can provide. I think after we kind of decided what we can do is put together a community document that highlights this project and the benefits of it with some of the designs of biomass, why we went this approach, what it's going to do for the school that you guys can use for community education piece.
You can still have their backup boiler is still oil, but you've got the pellet boiler as the primary.
Yeah,
so
you have to.
it does not get, we don't burn much oil or cable in that boiler. Julie?
This might be up there, but I can't read it. So it's about a $6 million project. How much of that is going to need to be put into debt at least? And what is the terms of that?
So it would be the project cost would be, I have it right now as a $6 million lease. Sometimes if there's funds we want to buy it down, we can go through those numbers later. But right now, it's a $6 million lease for 20 years. I use 4.3% right now. I've recently been seeing it between like 4.1 and 4.3. So for today's sake, they're having it at 4.3. If we can get a lower rate, we're going to start shopping it out pretty much after this meeting. And you guys say, let's continue to look at this project, then we'll send this to a few banks and get some competitive rates. And then with a phase 2, pending with the municipal lease purchase, you can refinance. So if next year phase two project, depending on what interest rates are, we can look at potentially combining them to refinance to get a bit of, or down the road if interest rates lower. Then it'll price. A lot of times the same bank who will do the phase one will be very interested in being competitive for phase two to get both projects. So it does signal that.
What is the life cycle of the biomass project?
And you can see with maintenance and farm maintenance, 30 years. Yeah, 30 years.
Okay, and then with a 30-year life cycle, obviously that school, we all hope it's not gonna be here 30 years. Is the system able to be transferred to a new building? So would it be able to be incorporated into a new building?
Yeah, I think the biomass boiler itself, I mean, the piping underground, the house would just be.
Yeah, the intention is this will be a remote building, with underground piping connecting this building and the high school. So that when at that end, it just shows what you need to do. And so it'll be in its own little boiler house. And so if there's a new school that goes somewhere else, it depends on like when it is, right? If it's 20 years from now, you probably
It wouldn't make sense.
Yes.
Okay. And then, I mean, just to ask the question, I'm sure you probably already planned for this, we'll be able to get whole loads of the actual fuel, correct? Correct, okay.
We got a little shovel for Brian to shovel.
We have done for another district that was doing renewable base and geothermal, if it's something that you guys are interested in, to make this more of a community impacted project. We've got shuttles for groundbreaking, which we could do on site, and we could invite the towns and help show them the work that we do. We've made it a good shuttles. We've included the students in it. If they wanted to, they'd come to see the site, give them a little tutorial and education lesson of what the biomass is going to be doing, or what the renewables going to be doing, and then the groundbreaking. So that's a fusion.
Eric?
Can we get a breakout of something that explains this and the cost savings that for the public? I think that's very important. We got shot down last year pretty badly, and I think we've got to get everything out as we possibly can.
Yeah, so we've done multiple different styles of community documents and community facilitation to educate them. So we would put together and we would go over the scope for the public that would show one of the reasons why we're doing this, the benefits of doing the biomass, and then what you're going to save as far as savings, but also CO2 reduction. And we can put in the form of how many cars you're taking off the road, how many trees you're saving, et cetera, with pictures of the new system. So we can make it a community document that shows the benefits. Which I think coming off of the bond and knowing how making the public aware of all of the facility improvement needs the district has to accomplish one that has a deadline that's been on the high priority need list, like the septic system, and capitalizing on the efficiency money and the thermal rec does set a good story for moving forward of, regrouping and having a proactive approach, utilizing if we can the funds that are available.
That'd be a page in our budget. Be kind of cool.
I had this, one district did that last year, they put it into, like, must have been their line book that went out to the public, and then others have a board, they put it up, with one of their board documents. We created smaller ones that do go into the board budget documents. I can put a few together and send them over to Brian here.
Really good. Anyone else have any other questions? Yeah, sorry.
Efficiency main grants. Is there any threat to those?
I've already emailed Rick Munkin, who's in charge of that program, to make sure just last week, he confirmed, yes, if we get that application in, which after this meeting, if you guys want to move forward with still exploring it, then I'll submit that application. But there are funds still available and we will be able to get that money, once we get the pre-approval. And then what's also built in is there's for the thermal recs, we've built in the cost. It's going to be a yearly cost. It's typically not that much for either a third-party monitor to do that work for you so that you're not submitting it online every year for the thermal recs. Or we also have the BT meter that's going to be installed in the boiler where you can do it on your own. So you have the option of either hiring a third party who we have their contact, or doing it in-house. Most customers just hire the third party because it is a yearly ongoing monitoring. And for what I think it's, a few thousand in comparison to get the 14,000, or if you want to do it in-house, you can. But that's also built into that. So once we get down there, we can talk through right here the options of that to make sure you get those every year.
I'm not sure about everybody else's feelings, but the list is pretty exciting as far as the projects here, especially the thermal mass. It sounds pretty good. I would recommend continuing the process and looking into it further.
Thank you. Did I miss you say where the septic was going?
The septic is I don't have the map up, but it's going right now to the left of the high school softball field. What's it called later?
It's in between the softball field and the football field with the track.
Yeah.
Although we'll still continue to use a portion of the old system.
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
trees won't have to be moved. right?
That is
No,
correct.
we will not be touching, the trees.
How does the piping of the thermal, like, where would that, do we have to disturb a lot of our pavement or our fields or whatever to get that piped over?
It'll
to?
go underground, under the pavement. We won't be going through the fields. So it'll be going under the pavement and then we'll re-put the pavement back in. So it'll be back to the parking lot, but yes, it will go through the parking lot underground.
I hope it goes under a lot of pavement.
Direct route, so it'll go straight from that building here to
No sure it's come back.
and then into the back of the house. Which also in that, in a document that we put together and show that, it'll show that piping path.
We've got that cost all included in
Yep.
this, the land work.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions on the April energy projects? Awesome. Keep on rolling. Karen, I appreciate you coming down.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
As far as personnel, a little bit of good news there. So we've hired a night custodian for the vacant position at Warren Community School. And we have also filled the vacant van driver position. So that's happened within the last, the custodian, night custodian was last week and the van driver was this week. So we're on a roll.
Are we good to go? Or-
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So any questions on personnel?
So the only thing left that you don't have staff would be the bus drivers that have always been on staff and is
The
there
bus.
anything else?
Correct.
You have one head.
And a night custodian here at the, across the campus of the Dominant Valley High School.
But we do have a driver in queue for one of the open bus driver positions, which is exciting.
So moving on to increased purchasing limit before the bid process.
So a couple of years ago, I believe Karen approached you based on the inflation, just the cost of doing business. It increased where I had to put stuff out to RFP, increased it from $5,000 to $10,000. And I am asking for consideration to increase that again, because at $10,000 these days, unfortunately, at commercial levels, doesn't get a lot accomplished. And certainly, I'm not opposed to doing legwork, but it's an extra step, and it's also a time-consuming step to generate RFPs. And so I would ask the board, I feel like I do a pretty good job of keeping everybody posted on the projects that I'm doing. And I would ask them to consider increasing that to $20,000 or $25,000.
We recommend this has to go to the policy committee, or it's a policy, but we just wanted to talk to facilities about it first.
I'd be comfortable moving it to 20.
I can attest that $10,000 does not do what it used to. It's construction.
I think we all know what the job that Brian has done for this district in his tenure here. You're not gonna overspend anything, I don't know. You know, make that limit 25,000, if he has to come back 2 years and say he needs 50, we'll have to do something, you know. Prices keep going up. They go up and up, we don't have no control of it.
Absolutely.
And we'll still work through the process and making sure we get the best vendors and the best prices.
Does this have to go to the board to approve that?
Well, it has to go to the policy committee first and then to the board.
I'm fine with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do we have to make a motion to send it to the policy committee?
I think it would look better if you did that. I mean, some of you are on the policy committee. And I think if the policy committee knows that this committee's voted in favor of it.
All right.
Just my
I
opinion.
can make a motion that we recommend that the policy committee review the, whatever the
I said bid limit.
bid limit, whatever policy it is, to revise it to a recommended 25,000.
Second.
I'd ask for an amendment on that, I guess, just to say up to 25.
Yep.
So they have some room to consider.
Up to 25.
Anyone have any other questions on that? All in favor of recommending to the policy committee? That's fine.
Am I,
You're able to.
You're excellent.
okay, I didn't know if I was coming in. Yes. I didn't think it was coming in for you.
Perfect. All right, next is bus driver training.
So I briefed you all on this on Monday when I presented. I didn't realize that was going to be happening. So you all heard my spiel, but we do have a person who got their permit last week. The other individual who tested for the permit passed 3 out of 4 sections. He will be tested on the 28th for that 4th section. He doesn't have to retest the whole thing, just a section that they didn't pass. And so we're hoping to have him permitted and get them on the road, going by using Chris Moody, who's our most recent licensed bus driver, as a benchmark. We're looking at probably 4 to 6 weeks from the time that they get the permit to the time that they would get their license, assuming that they pass on their first attempt. So there is relief in sight, albeit a little ways off. Along that same line, we've also got two individuals that just started the training of vaccines this past week. One of those is Corey Davis, who's the mechanic, and as I shared with you, obviously I'm hoping to keep him off the road. He's extremely valuable as a mechanic and making sure we're keeping the fleet safe. And then we have 2 others behind that are ready to get started once we get these 2 a little bit further along. So, knock on wood, and whatever you do to ward off evil spirits. There may be some light at the end of the tunnel there on some bus drivers as well.
Along those same lines, looks like we're at bus driver.
So bus driver, again, kind of rehashing very quickly, the current transportation software program that we use, TransFinder, was being paid for by the state of Maine. That is going to end, effective at the end of this fiscal year for us, June 30th. And TransFinder was also quite antiquated. I don't have Lee Robinson is here, who was our in-house pro on that, but I think he would tell you that it's not very robust compared to what you can get out of a lot of other software programs. So there are a number of them out there. Bus Right is the one that we looked at first. That's the one that's in about 40% of the buses in the state of Maine. And I would anticipate that with the state going, no longer able to transpire, that number will go up. But we are going to continue to look and take a look at some of the other programs, because the Bus Right certainly provides, it's incredibly robust to the point of, a lot of it we probably wouldn't use other than once or twice a year. But it is certainly going to be handy to have, or a software program like Bus Right would certainly be very handy, now that you can see what some of those things can do. We had a training with the bus drivers, this past Friday. And we have the Bus Right rep who came on and talked a little bit about some of the capabilities of it. And I haven't gotten complete feedback from the bus drivers, so I'm not going to say one way or the other on their feelings. I think that some of the stuff they were excited about, some of the stuff was not quite as important to them. Unless you'd like to add anything, don't have to.
No, I'm still thinking about what I see and be
All right.
honest with you, I'm probably going to do it in my head.
I'm sorry, Leanne, I'm sorry, Leanne, have you been there for a while and I just didn't notice you? All right, sorry, Leanne. Leanne is one of our van drivers, and, so she was in the training as well. So, sorry about that, Leanne.
I think like Brian had, we wrote this agenda before we knew he was gonna present everything on Monday. But as he said in that meeting, for one that there's a substitute, it'll be a really quick, much quicker transition, particularly for people that haven't lived here their entire lives to jump into a bus. And it's not as easy as one would think to opt you into a bus in a different town to pick up children you don't know. Maybe picking up is easy because they're standing on the side of the road, but dropping off, you don't know where you're going. If you miss the road, so it'll make it a smoother thing for sure. Right now, honestly, if somebody is brand new or need co-pilots, so basically he's sitting there making sure they know where to go.
I did see this morning, you know, when Carl Bryan had a tree down across the road, you know, I could have told, you know, the different facilities and stuff, this is one thing that Bus Right had, and I had to reroute and go around a different way to get the students, and what probably made a difference, maybe 8-10 minutes. So, I do see ways that could help.
Does that help?
What Myrna's saying is that, so she was gonna be running about 10 minutes late, that would Bus Right, has a communications package with parents with text messages, and so that would shoot out an automatic as soon as it recognized that she was gonna be running late. It would shoot an update to the parents saying, hey, we're now 10 minutes behind, we're running 10 minutes late. And as it picks up the kids, it's notifying parents further out, hey, we're 10 minutes out from picking up your student, et cetera, et cetera.
So I was wondering if GPS, even GPS track your buses coming in 5 minutes, or, you know, or you can see where it is on a map. I don't know how
Yeah,
depth it is, but
that particular piece is available, is not usually for the parent, release portion. It certainly will be at the schools, so they can monitor. In the mornings, what you hear a lot of is bus, you know, whatever, 13, and how close are you picking up X? And that's happening at all the schools typically, and hey, where's your status on this, et cetera, and that will be cleaned up. A lot, they'll be able to see it, so if a parent calls in, there's no delay there while you're trying to get in touch with the bus, you can bring it right up on the screen, and you can see exactly where the bus is, and where that student is, and how long they're estimating the arrival time.
And you're not distracted by calling them.
yeah.
That's about, in my opinion, that it should be in the facility and not the parents, because you don't want the parents knowing every place you stop, you know, you stop, because I've had issues before with somebody trying to stop the bus to
Get their kid.
get a child off that was not there, so that was way in the bad, but that did happen on the point.
Eric, what kind of system we're using now is given to us by the state. How much?
Well, the state pays for it, so we don't know about if the state's gonna offer to pay for a replacement system or a new software program. That is all still very much in flux, but I think we need to be prepared in case all this they come out and say, no, we're not, you're on your own. I'd like to have all that homework taken care of up front.
What's the cost? If it is on our own.
This one's around $40,000 to outfit every single vehicle that we have.
And then I'm sure there's a contract for upgrade.
Yeah, so TransFinder doesn't cost us anything. I don't know what the state pays for, but I can't emphasize enough that TransFinder looks like something from 1985 that only all her soft computers and.
No, this sounds great.
Like
That sounds great.
Pac-Man or something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go on any of the buses, so literally it's like twice a year. I just lost his name, not Leo Lee, and Ernie will sit and go through it because it's very archaic and create a bus route, but it's not versatile for the drivers or anyone else to use.
The interface with Infinite Campus is clunky and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really.
And this was accounted for in your budget presentation, correct?
It was, correct. Yeah. I think we put it down as transportation software because obviously we're pretty early on in the exploration on this.
Anyone have any other questions on that?
Is it typically a one-time purchase thing, or is that like every year?
It's a monthly or yearly reoccurring cost. And what that does is, with that is you get all your updates, you break a tablet, you get the new one with it,
So the tablet and the vehicle.
So is that less than the overall cost to outfit? Like there's an initial 40,000, say, and then ongoing support is a lesser amount? Or?
It sounds like that is a yearly reoccurring fee.
But they'll replace the tablet. They made it sound like indefinitely, because those things always scare me a little bit. When they say they'll replace every tablet forever within that money, but yeah.
There are contract terms, so I mean, we can set it how long we want it to go for, to be able to reevaluate.
And we can bring that down by not putting it in the vehicle if that was something. A local district is using it, that Ryan is a colleague with their transportation director, and they found it extremely beneficial, correct?
Yeah, Camden, who you all, Maggie Massengale sat in on a meeting here a few months ago, at this point, when we were still meeting in the central office. They like it a lot. They like it a lot. So we're gonna try to get her over here with a bus or a bunch of us to go over there and take a look and have it run us through so we can actually put our hands on it and see what the interface looks like. We did have a couple of the admin assistants, Karen Selbeck and Nikki Willis. Karen's from Miller and Nikki is from Warren Community School. Obviously they play a big role in this part as well to have them in on the discussion on Friday. And so that they are aware of what we're thinking about as well.
Hello, how are you?
Absolutely. Anyone else has any other questions on the bus rate? If not, we'll move on to redistricting. All right.
Pass those down for me as we go. No, both of them together. And the other one. There's one for you. Sorry, I think these are already prepped, but they were literally hot off the press. Yeah, sorry. I'm representing you here. Take all of them off.
No.
Okay, you're right.
You've been out since 3. Wow.
That's what we're talking about here. See what we're talking about.
You need more of that, right?
I think not. I think we've got everybody covered. Yeah, anybody here? Yeah, okay. I apologize. This is kind of simplistic, that we were doing, as far as the time frame. And I will tell you right up front that we haven't had a lot of time to go through this and really get fine details as far as we've got some student data, but not the real in the weeds that Julia did on the last time when we were looking for a single bus. So in front of you, you have two maps. One is a map of the district. You will see all the 5 towns. The borders, the town lines are kind of in a tan color. The red dots represent the schools in each one of the districts. And so as you look at that, you can see some of the targeted areas where you would have potentially students that are closer to another different school than the one that they're currently attending, which is Miller is what we're talking about. One in the north section of Waldoboro and one in the south section of Waldoboro. The second map that you have, which is on the map, that the circles that you see at the top and bottom, those are same as these circles, but actually put onto a bus route, a map of Waldoboro's bus routes. And so Julia has not seen this yet, so I apologize to Julia in advance. Did you get a copy of that?
Sarah and I talked about it before the meeting.
Okay. So I think Sarah was kind enough to get a little bit of information data-wise as far as student numbers. And again, this is no class breakdown. This is a very rudimentary, first cut at it. But I wanted to get you something. It also gives you a visual as far as those areas that could potentially be targeted to look at the student densities and see what we could do to alleviate some of the pressure off the Miller School.
Just what I brought Sarah and I were busy before the meeting and we got some numbers.
Oh, okay. At this time, I would like to turn it over to you. To complete the presentation.
That's a good thing she's covering it. All right, so again, I just saw this before the meeting, so you can preliminary if there are some mistakes, don't, do me in here. The south classroom, this is the south circle there. I would potentially take 23 students from Miller to Friendship. Sarah can tell you what units those are on better than I can.
That would affect Fintown Road and Friendship Road from the Bowling Lane side.
Sorry.
The other route, which is our east bus, it would take 7 students. What roads?
That would be, the second would be Nighttown.
And that would be the Warren School, or?
That can potentially look how we would like it to look. Our buses are leaving the middle school, high school campus and they're turning left on Nighttown. We have Warren buses, Prescott buses, and Union buses that are all turning left. So the 7 children there.
And that's between the high school and 235.
It is correct.
So that's a total of 30 students. The largest group would be at next year's 5th grade, which would be 8 students. 6th grade is potentially 6 students. There are no kindergartners in that group. 1st grade would have 4, 2nd grade would have 2, 3rd grade would have 5, 4th grade 6, I'm sitting at 5th grade 8, 6th grade is 6 or 7. Not clear exactly what the line would be, so.
And is 5th grade your class that has the biggest
Fifth grade?
Next year's fifth grade is where we have 2 teachers right now.
Understood.
Projected to have 50 students.
Correct. Gets us lower than 25 kids in a class.
Yeah.
It doesn't make 4 classes.
No, it doesn't. I'm just giving you what I have here. It doesn't give me any classrooms.
So it frees up little space, basically.
It brings up those space.
Yeah.
So next year it does this, these are not, because it looks like they're very dense populations. So how, I don't really understand how using bus routes does anything in a sustainable way, because assuming those students don't move, then, well, unless, you know, those students are gonna age out of Miller, and then are we gonna pull other random bus routes to move to Miller? I don't see how it does anything sustainably.
So I can tell you that I wasn't necessarily even considering this map when I looked at this map. All I was looking at is strictly, we're responsible for transporting students to the closest school. And so that's where I was using this map, just to see those areas where there is some potential to put a student, transport them to a closer school.
I understand that in the previous bus route that you looked at. I just think no matter what way you pull students, unless you're talking about a really dense population, like there's 100 apartment buildings or 100 apartments in this building, or this neighborhood has 80 houses, you're never going to be talking about a dense enough area of population to sustain reduced class sizes or reduced classes from everything that I've seen so far.
Julie? I got you.
I hear what you're saying, but I think that even just this, even if we just look at the southern route here and bringing a few of those kids down to Friendship, I think it's a big boost for the classes at Friendship that they need a few more students, and they don't need a lot of students. They just need a few more to make things. I mean, how do you have a gym class with 4 kids in it? I don't know how they did, some of those projects and things like that.
You can't play baseball.
And if it does enough to reduce the 5th grade, so she doesn't need a 3rd teacher, there's a benefit there for next year as
So
well.
that we only lose 5 kids to just do that.
Okay.
Doesn't cost a whole lot.
But they need 5 5th graders.
No, I'm not saying for them.
Right.
Yeah, great for them. Took a lot of pressure out.
Melvin?
It seems to me from all of the discussions I've heard that the Miller School needs space. It's not the amount of students there, but they need space. And the only way I see to get any space at the Miller School is to take the 6th grade out of there and bring it to this building. Now, Friendship, they got all kinds of rumors floating around out there. But so don't all the rest of the town. And it's gonna be a hard decision for any of us to make, to move students away from where they was. The 6th grade students, once they get through the 6th grade, they gotta come. But they don't want them. They just as soon go right back to middle school for the 7th grade. But there's not room in it. We got a room problem. We got the room, it's just we're not utilizing it right.
Just
I
one
agree.
second.
Okay.
Brian, do you have any information on logistically what it would look like moving 6th grade here?
So moving 6th grade here from a transportation standpoint is pretty straightforward. They get on the high school, middle school buses, which, I don't anticipate that that would pose any issues of any of our high school, middle school. Mary, can you think of any buses at the high school, middle school run that are overwhelmed with students right now? That you're absolutely right.
And it gets pushed at times, number wise, and,
Artie is a Warren driver, so, so that would potentially not have an impact. But, so,
Do they operate, the high school and middle school, are they operating at a different time,
No,
like pickup time?
Then in the elementary, absolutely. So assuming the sixth grade would go on a middle school schedule, that they would start at the same time as the middle school. I assumed that was done, otherwise it wouldn't work as a transportation.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say it wouldn't work, we'd have to figure out.
well, we gotta have somebody here to take care of it.
Julie?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree. I know it doesn't fix the space issue. So I do agree with, I think that that is gonna be the best solution. In this case, it's raining sixth grade up here, but I don't think we can, I don't necessarily want to dismiss the idea of offering kids to go to Friendship if they live on the way. Like our Friendship bus has to drive to Friendship. Can those students all along the way while he's heading back to start his route, can they be offered the opportunity to go to Friendship? And some of them may take them up on it. They take you up on it. That's what I'm thinking, just it could be helpful to get some more kids down there.
Well, maybe there's some sixth graders, out of Mill that would rather go to Friendship. I don't know how much room there is down there. That's a small building that these buildings, and the rest of them come here. There's 2 or 3 that.
They had over 100 students there at one time now, so their classrooms can accommodate 12, 15 kids, I assume.
Yeah, we have 10 sixth graders right now.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, and again, especially for the public, the solution is not only one thing we're suggesting here. There can be multiple things that we can address this space and the redistricting with. We've already talked about, Steve presented in his budget, moving one special ed program out of Miller. That would free up a classroom, correct? Another one, and I got to briefly talk with Brian, but I really wanted to get some people's thoughts on this board, is you have the pre-K building and you have one class in that pre-K building, correct?
That's all it fits, yes.
And you have one in the main building right
That's
now.
correct.
So something we could possibly consider, and would be much cheaper than addition onto Miller or an addition onto here, is a smaller addition on the old central office building to bring it up to the point that it could sustain the 2 classrooms. That would free up another classroom, correct?
Yes. I don't know how much bigger it has to be to get,
That was my next question, is if anyone knew.
well, I don't, sorry, it's not the thing.
I feel like, what did Jamie say? It can hold 28.
It's
29.
about 13 and a half students aside is what I can handle right now. So a couple hundred square foot per side, so 400 square foot addition. And again, I don't hold me to that. I'm just saying that would get us closer. I'm not saying that it's going to give them a life of space.
It's short by like 6 kids, as I recall.
What's your pre-K population right now?
32, we're full.
22, okay.
That's the most they can do.
Right.
They could take more.
No,
I
They
mean,
can-
you got a bigger unit.
they can only have 16 students per teacher for the pre-K. So, and they have to have an impact.
Oh, yeah.
If they go over 34, they have to have another teacher.
So it was just another idea on trying to free up another classroom in the building. Rather than, and again, I agree with Julie. I don't think we should dismiss this entirely. I really like the idea of getting the utilization of Friendship up. But I'm sure Terry would love to have someone use it. And so the idea of getting that utilization up, and it, again, takes a little bit of student density down. It just seems like we shouldn't totally dismiss this while considering the other options. Leah?
I completely agree. And I think a good approach would be to send letters to all the parents in the pre-K program now and maybe even the kindergarten program. I think it's gonna be a much harder sell to get fifth graders to go to Friendship for sixth grade, or even for fourth graders, right? Established. But I think it'd be really great to try to get little kids into Friendship, and then that would, over time, sustain those larger classes in Friendship.
I would like to add that, please remember that when I'm looking at these things, I'm looking through the lens of transportation and facilities. So by no means, I realize that a lot of these aren't gonna work on the educational side of the house. So please bear with me sometimes if I come up with a bad idea.
You never have yet, Mark.
Oh, you don't know how many.
She was.
I agree with Leah. I think sending it out to families, and I think even older children, I'm probably in a different position. My daughter moved three different elementary schools. And for her, it works. I mean, I think it depends on the child's personality. That works fine. A lot of children wouldn't, but it can work.
Are you talking about the whole cohort, like sending everybody the offer? If they
Well,
want
I
to
mean,
drive
especially
themselves?
Miller, right, because they,
Yeah, that's what I mean, the whole class.
and we could, I mean, you could look at the map and see what route you could potentially add transportation wise. So anybody would be welcome to apply to go to Friendship, but if you live on these specific roads, maybe transportation could be offered.
I think like what you were saying, if that's where the Friendship bus goes, right?
Yeah, there's only really two ways to get down there. One's 220 and the other one's Midtown. So it usually goes down one way and comes out the other way in the afternoon, so.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
We talked about the students attending Miller on superintendent and principal agreements. I'm gonna account for that. And there are 11 students there. This principal and superintendent agreements. You have 11 students there currently.
Almost everyone is a staff student, or a staff member, either at Miller, up on the high school.
And I don't think that it makes sense to end those now, but something to consider could be phasing that out so that as those students move through the grades, we don't approve additional agreements. And I recognize 11 students is not going to make a difference, but when you have 11 students on agreements and then another 12 to 14 that are in a program that can be moved to another school, combined with some students that may be redistricted, now it adds up to maybe 50 or 60 students. And that could start to make a difference. And then the other consideration is over time, we are anticipating that the enrollment will decline. So, depending on how many years out you look at that, that's going to help as well.
Just as for more information, most of those principals agreements for staff or staff in our special education programs, they would say, they have said, well, my child can't come here, I can't come here either. So that's why I have agreed to those.
And you have room.
And I have
with your
room.
current staff.
Have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell me that you've heard enough from me. In terms of waiting for enrollments to go down, I know that Miller's enrollment has gone up, and I don't know historically what that looks like. If you are seeing any overall decrease over time,
We've been up what the last 15 years. Okay. We're the highest this year than we have been in 15 years.
Doesn't hurt that.
probably like we.
That's because we get a good principal on it. That's it, really.
It's a good staff. Good dealings. A lot of things at Miller. We get some bad press, but we are a good school.
I want to say, Julia's at her high of 15 years and all the other schools are at their low. I would say, maybe Union is just about where they were a few years ago, but everyone else. Actually, that's not true. Prescott's hiring because of that anchor K. So Prescott's hanging steady.
Do any administrators want to add anything else to this? Just want to make sure I give you the opportunity.
I mean, I certainly can look into like how many students in kindergarten and the lower grades are on those routes. I'm not gonna do that right now, it's something I'm saying. I could get that information for you.
Melvin?
I think we need to kind of put the more weight on Julia's shoulders, and I hate to, but have her, you know, she needs some room there. It's not about the amount of students, really, it's room. So I don't know how many students are in the sixth grade. I don't go to school there. I have no idea.
I'll tell you. Next year, there will be 48 students, no, sorry, 49 students projected in sixth grade.
And how many rooms is that would that free up?
2 or 3.
Huh?
2 or 3. Depends on whether I get to make my fifth grade, well, my current fifth grade into 3 classes, which it really needs to be. So I would love it to be 2 rooms.
How many students would you need to reduce the fifth grade to stay at
Sorry.
2? How many students would you need to reduce fifth grade to stay at 2?
Depends on which students they are.
No, we got you right on the spot. I'm sorry about that. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
At least 10.
Yeah, I would say 10 kids. And you don't get that in place.
Right.
Because we're talking about the current fifth grade. And like with our original moving plan from the whole friendship, the whole South Bus run, we only get, well, we would take 13 students away from that classroom. We would have 36. So that, like that, but then again, we're moving sixth graders to another school in sixth grade. This is brutal. Right. That's, that would not be my first choice, but that's what we need, 10 kids.
But if you move sixth grade, you'd have room for your third, fifth grade class.
Correct. And we would have room for potentially pre-K. Music, I'm sorry.
Music? I would move.
Music, that's what you from us, you're saying, way glad you're here. Music, world language, health, you know, there's plenty of choices. We have a conference room, we have. But obviously that would not be a choice, we'll just all swash in my office.
And if, for those of you who've never been in Julia's office,
It's pretty small.
Small. We make very good use of our space. If you haven't been there, if you haven't been, guys haven't been there, come on over and see what we're doing.
Okay. So anyone else who has anything else, questions or anything to add?
Would it make it easier for the board discussion if this committee made a suggestion? Made a recommendation? I don't even know that we could.
I was gonna say, in some ways, I feel like it would be. I also know that there are members who aren't here yet, who probably want to be in on that stuff.
No, that are this committee.
Oh,
The committee made a recommendation to the whole board.
I think we can make a recommendation just by listening to this. I think there's a lot more conversation. I look for data.
It's pretty complicated.
It's very complicated. And I don't like separating out a bus line because population changes, you know, in 2 years, it'd be entirely different. You know, we don't know that. You know, so what are you gonna do? Then some other backers to solve this problem.
with that in consideration, then, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? It is 6:41 and we are adjourned.
Julian.